Welcome. We're doing this.
We're
The
doing
first
it.
episode.
It's being born.
Yeah, this is the birth of When Stars Align, and we're so excited. Um, I guess we want to start by just like telling you a little bit about us. I'm Kirah.
I'm Meghan.
And yeah, we're astrologers. We are obsessed with love and relationships.
Love more.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about us, maybe like our sun, moon, risings.
Love it.
And then we're going to get into kind of like some compatibility 101, talk a little bit about astrology and dating and how those two worlds combine and how to really like use astrology in your dating in a way that's not toxic.
And especially the right timing to use it.
Yeah.
When to ask for that birth chart.
Right. Maybe we'll give you some insight into some of our fun dating life stories.
I have a novel and a half, maybe a series at this point.
We both have heavy Scorpio, so I feel like we'll reveal maybe just enough.
Just enough, just to keep everybody on edge.
So why don't you start? Tell us your sun, moon, rising, and a little bit more about like you as an astrologer, as a person.
Yeah. So I'm a Virgo sun, a Scorpio moon, but it's part of a 7-part Scorpio stellium.
7.
And a Taurus rising.
Right.
And I feel like that Scorpio stellium sitting in specifically my 7th house of dating, long-term relationships, commitment, put me in this position where I was like, this is not just something that I'm passionate about, but this is something that's helped me learn so much about myself and other people. But giving insights to others, mobilizing other people is really where my heart's at. So I feel like becoming an astrologer was just this 4-part series of I'm bored out of my mind with finance and I'm way too squeamish to be a nurse. So what's the in between where I'm actually making an impact and not adding to the issues on this planet?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I want to ask you a little bit more. Okay. So what do you do as an astrologer? Tell us more about like, where your work lives.
So I've been a columnist with Glamour magazine for the last 4 years, writing their monthly tarot horoscopes, which at the time that they came out were kind of a first of its kind. I know that it's definitely taken off and spread like wildfire, and I love it because there's a million and one different ways to interpret cards, the monthly energies, astrological forecasts, how people's astrological energy plays out in their own life. But that's really where I started, becoming something other than the person that my friends would call and be like, what is going on right now? Yeah. Or is this guy good for me? And really doing something with it, sharing it with more than just one person at one time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, for me, I always feel like it's so hard because this is not in any way to sound like I'm bragging, but I've just done so much and I actually don't think it's a brag. I think I've done like too much. Like I've been a little too scattered. But that's just me. That's just me. So yeah.
I knew your work before I knew you.
Well, so how did you find it? Was it my podcast?
No, it was Twitter.
Oh my gosh.
I was crazy deep on Astro Twitter. And I think that was the only space where I really felt understood. I was like, oh my God, there are other people out here speaking this same language.
I feel like I always say Astro Twitter is for like the nerdy astrologers, the academic astrologers.
100%.
The ones who are like, let's talk philosophy on like Tuesday at 2 p.m.
Yes. And that is where my Virgo really plays in. Like everybody's like, you must be so anal and such a perfectionist. And I'm like, you need to come over anytime unannounced and you would see how far off that is from the truth.
Also, I'm just like looking at your charts. You're a 5th house Virgo. Like, that's like the most fun Virgo you can be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I need that tattooed across my chest. The funnest Virgo you could be.
I'm still trying to make like t-shirts that say Virgo apologists on them because I just have a thing for Virgos, but
we have a thing for you too.
Yeah. Virgo and Scorpio are like match made in heaven, truly. But yeah, I'm a Scorpio sun, Aries moon, and Pisces rising. Okay. And that's why I love Virgo so much, which we're going to get more into in this episode. I've been doing astrology, I guess like technically since I was a kid, but really since it's been 12 years almost, yeah. And which is wild. That's like a Jupiter cycle.
I know.
That makes me feel old. I'm not that old, but
Listen, I feel like every good astrologer, though, has the I started when I was a kid story.
Yeah.
Like anybody whose work I really resonate with because you hold on to the youthful, curious aspect of
Mhm.
it. I'm like, I don't care if you've been doing it for 12 years, 21, 101.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it started as a kid because I've always known I was a Scorpio somehow. I've always been obsessed with being a Scorpio. And when I was a kid, the internet became a thing. And around the time I was like 11, 12, middle school, I was just like researching what signs are most compatible because I was boy crazy. And yeah, that's really when it started. But it really started when I saw my birth chart for the first time in
Yes.
2012. And mind blown. I'll never forget that moment.
Mm.
And yeah, it's kind of history from there. So yeah, when I say I've done a lot, I've done podcasting. I made a quarterly magazine, an astrology magazine.
I love it.
I've written for a lot of publications and yeah, horoscopes. I've written a book. I'm writing another one right now. And I used to run a platform called Fresh Voices in Astrology, which was for, up and coming astrologers to present work, and we would host summits for that.
That was the space. That was like where all of us who were still in the incubation period wanted to be at.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was really great while it lasted. I wish I could have kept it going, but that's a story for another time I want to tell you about. So there's some tea behind that.
Piping hot. I can't get enough of it, please.
So yeah, podcasting and teaching. I've been teaching a course, but like basically a fundamentals course, which I love teaching, and I'll teach a timing course later this year. So yeah, teaching and podcasting, and then my one-on-one client work is sort of like the bedrock of my practice. Yeah, I've hosted communities and I've just like really dipped all my little tentacles in all the little astropods.
I wish that everybody knew. Kirah was talking about how her spirit animal, or the animal that she feels deeply connected to, was a spider, and then subtexted with maybe an octopus as well. And I was just like, yes, the multiple legs and feet in 100 different projects at any given time. I love it.
I was watching my octopus teacher last night as I went to bed, so that's why tentacles is in my brain. But also, yes, tentacles. But yeah, so I think when it comes to astrology and like relationship, love astrology is like for both of us I feel like for a lot of people, like that's kind of a big entryway into learning a lot more about your chart and other people, because it's like, why do I feel this way about Aries? Why am I so thirsty over Tauruses?
Yes. Versus being like, what signs are really good together. I love that everybody's starting to dive deeper and understand we're more than just our sun signs. Right. There's something in a chart that can typically point to why, even if your sun sign is not compatible with Geminis or Libras, that there's this internal pull, this intuitive celestial pull. And having worked with thousands of clients at this point, working with just all different walks of life, I feel like the one common theme is just people wanting to understand how to relate more deeply, not only with themselves, but with other people. Relationships are such a key part to our work.
Everything. And we're both relationship people in terms of our birth charts. We both have big 7th house emphasis, which is part of the chart having to do with relationships. So we're kind of the perfect people to be doing this right now.
I think so too.
I think.
You can trust us.
Exactly. And we dated a lot.
A lot is an understatement. My poor Catholic grandmother, I hope she's not watching this. A lot is an understatement.
Exactly. We have a lot of experience to draw on, we can say. And research. That's I love that. So yeah, I think we were talking about like what to do for our first episode, and I think it'd be really fun to dive into just like compatibility 101, because like we said, there's kind of like the basic surface level that people get, like, oh, water signs are good with water signs, and fire, and then maybe like under that, water and earth, and then fire and air. But even beneath that, there's modality, right?
Yes.
There's other things that can connect signs, that I think we want to talk about, and we want to talk about timing, like you said. Should we start there?
I think we should definitely get into the timing. I
Yeah.
feel like the thing that a lot of people know now, and especially hot on the dating scene. I haven't been out of the dating scene for that long. I still know what's going on. Or I'd like to think that. But everybody's asking for the big three. And I think we should get into why that's so important in dating.
Yeah.
Why is everybody asking on the first date?
And like people put it in their dating profiles now, and it's wild. It's weird coming from when I started doing this in like 2012, and I was going to parties. I was in college in New York City at art school, and no one knew what the hell I was talking about. That's like the context.
Yeah.
I was doing people's chart readings at parties, and people were like, what is this? Like, what is a rising? What are you talking about?
Speaking a totally foreign language.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in rural New Hampshire and didn't move out to LA until 2017. So I was like 5 years behind, still trying to fight the good fight on the East Coast.
Well, things really didn't start popping off until like 2017, 2018. So you came right at the perfect time. But yeah, okay. So let's talk about sun, moon, rising. I like to say SMR. I tried to make that a thing.
Cute.
And then, yeah, I don't know. I guess I wasn't popular enough to totally change everyone's like big three.
TTYL, Kirah.
SMR. Okay, the reason I like it because it made it standard. It standardizes it, right? Like sun, moon, rising. But then I was talking to some friends, and we kind of came up with ASMR, which is ascendant, sun, moon, ruling planet.
I was like, where is she going with this?
But I like starting with the ascendant because for me, I'm such like if you're telling me your placements, I need to like picture it in my head.
I was going to call you out. I was going to be like, SMR, you fully start with R, but okay.
Yeah, exactly.
ASMR.
So anyway, big three. I just feel like it's clunky, but that's just me.
Yeah. No, I like it. I think, honestly, especially with my rising is Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
Taurus is ruled by Venus. So my chart ruler is my Venus in Scorpio.
Right.
And that is the placement I've always been drawn to from the start. Like, saw my chart for the first time, was working with this older woman back in New Hampshire who was an astrologer. Her name's Dawn. And
love that name.
I know, especially for an intuitive astrologer.
Yeah.
And
beautiful.
I just remember feeling in that moment, like, there is something with this placement that I love. I can't get over this. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until years later that I learned about a chart ruler. So the ascendant.
Yeah.
For A.
Let's start with the ascendant because that's really one of the most important parts of the chart. I mean, every part is important, but it all starts with the ascendant, which is the rising sign. They're kind of one and the same in terms of, how you refer to it. But the ascendant is so important because it is the sign that is ascending on the eastern horizon at the time of birth.
Yes.
And I'm curious, like, how you talk about it with people, because for me, I always talk about it as like that eastern horizon point. That's where the sun rises. So it kind of represents this moment of birth and appearing into the world, right? And it's also that point where the heaven meets the earth, or the sky meets the earth. And you can kind of think of that as spirit meeting matter. So at that moment in time, what was ascending on the east at the time you were born has so much to do with you and who you are and your identity and beinghood.
Yes. And it also dictates all of the houses in your chart. So I always have people ask me, is it really important for me to know exactly when I was born? And the reason that it is because the ascendant sign changes every 2 hours, but it's not specifically on the hour.
Right.
So it's important when people are coming to us as astrologers and they're like, I don't know, it's semantics. It was somewhere between 6 and 7 in the morning. Yeah. And I'm like, I can give you a rough estimate. We can go off of that. There's still going to be so many parts, like the planets in signs that will make sense. But your rising sign dictates truly the rest of the way that you show up in life and look at
Yeah.
life.
And the rising sign being off can really throw your chart off quite a bit and those interpretations off quite a bit. So do your best to get the exact time or as close to exact as possible. And I would say talk to an astrologer if you're feeling like weird about it or you're not too sure. And there's things can be done. There's a technique called pendulum swing. So we can go we can go witchy with it. You can divine on it for sure. I was gonna say there's rectification.
You're like, I'm going really logical and I'm just out here in La La Land.
No. I mean, I'm there with you too. But yeah, rectification is like a process that an astrologer does to kind of go through the life and see what would make sense, essentially. Something I've never done. And it's like a huge process.
I felt I showed up to a finals test and just read all of the wrong notes. Like I was like, yeah, rectification. No, I don't use it in my practice because I do to go heavy on that Saturn in Pisces in my 11th house. And I'm just like, let me get a little bit more into my gut and into my intuition with the way that I'm reading.
That. Yeah. Well, okay, so rising sign in your chart, look at that sign. If you're looking at like a circle chart, it's going to be the sign that is on the left-hand side. There usually is like an AC or an ASC over there for ascendant. Yep. And that's a sign that's rising in the east. That point represents the eastern horizon.
And I think it also helps too for people when you're looking at a chart to realize this is actually the sky.
Yeah.
Like this isn't something totally intangible. I think it gets lost in the sauce a little bit with the fact that astrology is an ideology, but you can see a lot of these placements, like when Venus is really close to the moon and you can see both of them in the sky, like it will show up in the chart as well.
Yeah. So the chart itself is like this 2D representation of the heavens from the perspective of where you were in the time, the place in that rising sign, the ascendant sign, showing what's appearing into the world at that moment speaks a lot to your appearance and what you look like and your sort of like overall temperament. I like to call it your vibe. Like your ascendant is like, that's a vibe. That's the vibe you bring into a space. That's sort of the vibration that you live your life on. And yeah, it's just like, that's your energy.
And I think appearance for sure goes hand in hand with this, but the way that other people are perceiving you.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been out and asked somebody, are you a Sagittarius or are you a Gemini? And they're like, no, that's not my sign. Then I'm like, do you mind pulling up your chart? Smack dab on the rising sign, always.
Yeah, so that's why I think a lot of astrologers don't like to guess people's signs, because we usually will be guessing the rising sign. Yes. And people have no idea what that is, so it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yes.
But yeah, so in terms of dating, in terms of dating, you want to look at your rising sign as like your vibe, your energy, and other people that you might be looking at their chart, same with them. That's like their general energy and vibe that they're sort of living their life for or bringing into any scenario.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've heard this in your close friend circles, but I feel like I always hear the undertones of like, I want to be with a partner who's really bold, or I would rather be with somebody who's reserved and not shaking the boat. And I'm like, look at your prospective partner's rising sign.
Yeah.
Like, this is who that person is going to be when you bring them out in front of strangers, out in public, to your work events. Like, think about the first and only introduction that this person is going to be giving off, their rising sign.
Exactly. And any planets there in the first house in that sign that's rising will also sort of color their appearance and how they present themselves.
Absolutely. I know. I can't wait to get into all of the other planets.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, for example, I'll just give an example. Mars in the first house, people might have red hair. They might just have literally like a more red tinge to their complexion. they might just like to wear red a lot. Similar, like Venus in the first house will tend to give a lot of beauty or just like natural grace and charisma, you could say.
Absolutely. Like
Charm.
anybody that you know who embodies Venusian qualities, when that Venus sits in their first house, it's just this undeniable trait. Like the way that they dress, the way that they do their hair, their makeup, the jewelry that they put on.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Like always best foot forward.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we'll get talking about the rising sign, I think.
We'll come back to it because your rising sign lets you know what sign rules over your 7th house. And as we were talking about before, what makes us qualified to talk about love and astrology is the 7th house deals with romantic relationships, partnerships, and long-term commitments. So it's a great indicator not only of the type of partner that you want, but also most likely the rising sign talks about the type of partner that your partner will be looking for as well.
Right, exactly. Let's talk about like the most obvious planet, the sun.
It always gets a bad rep now. I swear it was like the minute people found out about a big 3 or your whole chart, it was like, we don't need the sun.
Yeah,
like, that's
fuck your sun sign. Tell me your Venus sign.
Yeah, it's become the whole like holier than thou thing. Like, we don't look at the sun over here. And I'm like, you're not supposed to look directly into the sun, but it also brings light and life and serves purpose.
Especially for our estate charts. But yeah, so the sun, how do you usually describe the sun to people?
The sun to me is, well, this is also going to get a bad rep, but the sun is ego. The sun is that part of you that works off of a very instinctual basis. It's how you show up in the world, but there's also confidence in that. Like if you can work well with your ego, to me, I'm like, you're always running on a high.
Yeah.
If you can work in a harmonious way with your ego, it allows you to stay motivated by the right things. So I always talk about the sun as like almost sugar. Like if you have too much of this, if you go too much in the shadowy aspects of your sun sign, you'll find yourself burnt out. I mean, we can talk in metaphors all day about it, but if you can learn how to harness the power and the light aspects of your sun sign, it's such a powerful motivating factor to who you can be in this lifetime.
Yeah, that's interesting the way you put it. I mean, motivation is such a big part of the sun. I kind of think about the sun as like how we shine, and the sign is sort of the lens that we put over that light, you know?
I say that to people too. Like if you were wearing pink glasses or green glasses, that's always the metaphor that I use.
I mean, it's perfect. So yeah, it's sort of that filter, the sign being that filter through which like that light pours through, and that the sun has a lot to do with our intellect and our mental intelligence, our spiritual intelligence as well. And I like to think, you know, there's so many different types of intelligence.
Yes.
And the sun really speaks to that, what that is for you. Yeah, again, how we shine. And ego makes a lot of sense. It has a lot to do with our confidence or ability to just like express ourselves unapologetically and freely. And again, some people don't have that. Some people have a more difficult time with that, and we usually would look to their sun to kind of understand more about that in the chart. So yeah, the sun is a big deal. I think I really want to make a note here that some of you might think you're a cusp sign, and no shade at all, but just know that
there's shade.
She's the Virgo, okay? She will be throwing the shade. No, but it's not a thing. So essentially the sun is either in one sign or it's in the other. And you might think, oh, well, I have a blend. I'm Cancer and I have a blend of both. You probably have a planet that's in Cancer and another planet that's in Leo.
Yes.
But the sun can't occupy 2 spaces at once. It's like either you're in the door or you're out the door.
Absolutely. And we'll get into that as our podcast goes on, but even when you think about a wheel being 360 degrees, being divided up by 12 signs,
Right.
each sign is going to take up 30 degrees of that pie.
Right.
So there is no way to enjoy two pieces of the pie at the same time,
Exactly.
unfortunately. And shout out to Gemini men.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We'll have a whole episode about Gemini men probably. And then a whole another one about Pisces men and a whole another one about Sag men. Yeah.
And the big three would not be complete without your moon sign. Talk to me, Aries moon.
The moon sign is so important. I like usually describe it as like your intuitive self, your instinctual self. I know you talked about instinct with the sun. I feel more mental, spiritual instincts with the
Yes.
sun and more physical, emotional instincts with the moon.
Outward facing.
Right.
Sun being that outward expression of instinct, acting on the physical instinct.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes. And then so the moon in our charts, I mean, it's what we need to feel safe. It's what we need to feel just like okay. It's what we need to feel like ourselves on the inside. It also has a lot to do with like how we eat, how we sleep, how we take care of ourselves.
When you think about feeling safe, even when people talk about your basic needs being met, the first line of safety is eating, sleeping, somewhere safe, having enough water.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a powerful thing. I describe it too. I don't know if you do this with your clients, but like your inner child or even like your inner infant, the ways that you enjoyed being nurtured as a child, your mother figure.
Yes,
and
definitely.
then also how you nurture others, how you nurture yourself. It's such a potent look into the deepest parts of your heart.
It's exactly. And yeah, hold someone's moon sign with care when you know that. Because I think moon sign compatibility is just so important. Yeah. I feel like definitely well, how much do we get into? Okay, so
it's the emotions. We could go on so long.
Exactly. I just get so ooshy talking about the moon because to love someone is to know their moon sign and to treat them accordingly, I think.
Yes. And again, it brings back when we look and observe the actual moon in the sky, the changing phases, the ebb and flow, the understanding that the person that you know and love is not going to act the same in situations where they're not in their safety and comfort as they do when they are in their safety and comfort. So it's almost like a lifeline to get them back to that space of balance and harmony and to calm heightened emotions, not to disregard when emotions are heightened at all. For me, especially with all of these Scorpio placements, I get it loud.
But it's like stasis. It's coming back to whatever that stasis is for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And also recognizing that like your moon might not be compatible with someone's moon and everything else might look really nice, but sometimes that can be a make or break sort of situation or dynamic for people because the things that make you feel safe, secure, comforted might be totally in like something that another person might not even be able to offer for you.
Yes. You think about if somebody had a Sagittarius moon and had other parts of their chart that was indicating to them that they should be more focused on freedom and traveling and exploration, going deeper into their spiritual practice and their psyche. But then you had someone who maybe had a Taurus moon. And for them, they could have grown up without that sense of stability. So finding a home space, a long-term partner, and a relationship with themselves that promotes longevity, stability, security, and maybe not so much change, especially not on a day-to-day basis or the type of person that is going to hit their midlife crisis and want a completely different reality. Those could absolutely indicate we're saying this might feel good for now, but long term, it may not work out for both of you, which inherently means if it doesn't work for one, it can't fully and unabashedly work for the other one, even if it hurts more.
Yeah, I think especially doing this over so many years and dating so many people and just having relationships, not even dating. I've come to realize like there's certain moon signs, one in particular, and this has nothing to do with Libra moons as like people, but it's opposite my moon in Aries, and it can just be the same dynamics come up, and it can just be really difficult to deal with.
I think subconsciously that was why I was calling out Taurus moons because it's opposite my Scorpio moon.
Yeah.
It is. It's hard.
It's hard. The opposite moon signs can be really difficult. I mean, some people absolutely can make it work, but I found it to be really difficult for me. And it kind of becomes like a deal breaker in dating for me because I'm like, I'm not going into that cycle again. I've done that a million times before.
But how loving for yourself to know what makes you feel good and safe and say, there's 100 different options for how to keep myself good and safe. It's okay for me to not put my hand on the hot burner again.
Yeah, exactly. And same the other way around. I know my Aries moon is like does not make Libra moons feel safe all the time. You know that, yeah. So just recognizing that, I don't think there's anything wrong with being just like aware and discerning and dating in that way.
But this is also, I think, a good place for us to bring up the astrological etiquette. So how can we encourage people to look at other people's charts without being completely closed off or calling closed-mindedness discernment?
Yes, I agree. Because I have a Libra moon texting me right now, I'll just say.
There's exceptions to every rule.
I straight up told him, like he gives me, this is on Hinge, he gives me his info, and he goes, so are we compatible? And I said, to be honest, no, but I'm down to fuck around and find out.
The Aries moon strikes again. No, but.
He had a video of him. I usually like hate videos of guys in the gym because I'm like, whatever, we all go to the gym, like chill. Especially when it's like 5 pictures of them in the gym. But he had this video of him like back squatting like a shit ton of weight. And as someone who loves to lift, I was just like, great form. Like, it was just like impressive. So I was like, fuck it, why not? But yeah, I mean, I don't expect anything from this. I'll tell you that much.
Not anything that you would bring back home.
Right, exactly. I'm like, after, I just know how it gets. I've been there, done this. But what I will say in terms of like that information, because over the years, I've come to the point where I don't ask people their birth information.
Absolutely. It's so important as astrologers and just people in the dating pool to know that you can show it off. I think as it becomes a more common topic.
I have in my dating profiles that I'm an astrologer usually, at least in Field. I only really use Field. That I'm an astrologer, and it just, because I get questions about it. So I kind of just put like, I'm a professional astrologer. I do podcasting and work with clients and a lot of writing. And that's it, basically. So when people sometimes match with me, a lot of times I'll get just like birth info. Just like people just like, hey, this is my sun, moon, rising, or I was born this day in Iowa City or whatever. And
this is exactly when I was single. I was like, the onslaught of information is immediately overstimulating to me. Like, I'm like, I'm not working. I would quote them my rate. I would be like, oh, yeah, I charge this much an hour.
I actually had a guy I was dating who I'm still very good friends with book a reading with me, like right around the time we started talking on Tinder. And we did a reading, and then we just like smoked weed on Zoom together afterwards. Still friends. That's what Gemini I like love dearly. But anyway, yeah, I would say I try not to ask until I'm on the first date. That's what I try to do. Yeah. Sometimes, again, a lot of dudes are just, not just dudes, a lot of people are just overzealous and like want to know what you would say about them, or are we compatible?
Well, and this is with my Taurus rising where I'm like, because it's valuable information and insight.
Period.
Like that's really, I think, where it starts to become aggravating for me. Not that people want the information or respect my take on it, but more so just because I'm like, people see it.
Yeah.
And we have to see it too.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, so I mean, I guess like I would advise people if you're out there, an astro like nerd like us or an astro girly and or an astro boy.
Yes.
Um and you want
Absolutely.
to engage with people, especially on like online dating, but even IRL dating,
Yeah.
with astrology, I would recommend like not diving into the chart right away.
Absolutely. I think it gives too much of a pre-existing notion. And I think a lot of the narrative right now, or the way that people are using the information that they have on astrology, is to say, well, I dated somebody who was this sign, so now I won't date any more of those sun signs. Your sun sign is the only sign that really does take up a 12th of the chunk of the population. So it's like you could be, metaphorically, astrologically shooting yourself in the foot, saying you're never going to date an
Right.
Aquarius again. But the love of your life is an Aquarius with
Don't say that to me.
with so many Virgo placements.
I'm like, no way, because I'm kind of like that. And the reason is, are certain parts of your chart that like certain sun signs are going to light up and
Yep.
inflame in a way that's just not fun for you, especially in like a romantic relationship.
Totally.
So like I can respect that, but I need you to show your work with that. Like I need you to actually have the astrological, details to back up why you are blocking out that whole sun sign.
Yes.
And if you don't actually know and you haven't talked to an astrologer as to like why Virgos drive me insane, I can't relate, but like, that sort of thing. Why do I keep dating Leos and it keeps ending this way? Then yeah, look into that. But until then, stop doing that.
Absolutely. And I think from a professional standpoint, especially when I have somebody coming to me and they're like on that hamster wheel and they keep attracting the same sign,
Right.
I always like to look into the spiritual meaning of it. Like if you're attracting an onslaught of Aries, it might mean that you need to be more bold and self-prioritize more, or that the house that Aries rules in your chart needs a little bit more love. And I think that's where a professional astrologer can take that information and give you unbiased and valuable insights into why you might be feeling turned off by a certain sign.
Yeah.
But also give you that confidence back to say, maybe not all of those signs when it just comes to the sun sign. And I think that's why holding off on asking until the first date, my rule was always until I knew that I was the only one that they were dating.
Oh my gosh. You're such a Virgo. I love it. I can't remember a time where I even asked someone, am I the only one you're dating?
It's my Scorpio stellium more than it's my Virgo. Because I'm like, I can keep things neat and tidy. Like, I know how to do that on the physical plane.
Yeah.
Like, there's ways that we can keep that neat and tidy. But the Scorpio stellium is just like, I'm not letting you in to my golden juice.
Yeah, your fortress of love.
Yeah, without knowing that you're not just being like, oh, so this astrologer told me I was really good with Libras, so we can keep dating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true.
Deflated.
No, it's true. Maybe you should be my astrologer and guide me.
This is such a full circle moment. Kirah is the only professional astrologer I've ever paid to work with.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I have friends that are astrologers, obviously, like keep the conversation flowing, keep my brain malleable. But you, back in 2021, when I was in Amsterdam, it was like right before my birthday.
I don't even remember what we talked about.
I don't either, but I know that what was meant for me sat in my heart. If we're sitting on this couch together now.
Exactly. But
I'll absolutely be your astrologer.
Good. Because I need some better love advice, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really nice to be surprised by someone and not necessarily going in with preconceived notions, I guess.
Totally.
Not to say it doesn't work, but from my experience, it's just more fun that way.
Yeah.
It's more fun to kind of find out after. I was in Berlin a couple years ago on a date with this guy, and I'm like meeting up with him at a park because that's what everyone does for dates in Berlin.
Dating in Europe.
And he's like, I'll bring some wine or whatever. We'll go to a park. And so I'm like I'm getting out of the cab and I see him sit like perched up on like the stone wall, just kind of like waiting for me, wearing all black.
I'm so turned on right now.
He was God. And so I was like, "Oh, I see you." And he's like, "Damn, I was trying to stay hidden or whatever." And so anyway, we're drinking, we're hanging out, and he's like, "You didn't ask me what my birthday is." And I'm like, "When is it?" And he's like, "You have to guess." Da 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 da. Of course, I couldn't guess.
The magician's
Exactly.
party trick that people do.
And turns out, homie's birthday is the day before mine.
I knew you were going to say it. We talked about this yesterday. This is a moment. I knew she was going to say it. He was dressed in all black.
Yep.
He didn't want to be seen.
Exactly. I'm
Come
like, I
on.
should have known. I should have known. Yeah, he was like a year and a day younger than me. But
And also a little bit younger. Like, I'm just like, this is like a fantasy novel at this point.
No, it's actually funny. My old assistant, Emily, turns out, oh, she was my assistant at the time, and I'm like looking at his chart. I'm like, why does your chart look so familiar? They have the same chart.
No.
Same chart.
But just born in different places?
Yes. Yes. Same day. Like, yeah.
I
Wild.
wonder if they would get along. Have you done that? Like, either met somebody or dated somebody with your exact birthday or introduced people who did?
I've dated a lot of people with my birthday. Not a lot, but like 3.
You guys, it's so funny because the imagery in my head is magnets.
Yeah.
But I'm like, Scorpios are like both ends.
Yeah.
Are still just like.
Scorpio's love is a drug. I'm telling you, it is the best drug out there. And for a long time, I was just in my 20s. I would say throughout my 20s, I was just like seeking it. Like, because I had it early on in my 20s. This guy I went to college with, and we were born the exact same day, 2 hours apart. So he's a Taurus rising with the Scorpio stellium in the 7th. And I'm a Pisces rising. So it was.
Are you having flashbacks sitting on this couch?
No, because he's such a douche. So he's like not worth it. But
I'm sure a lot of people would have that same thing to say about me. You just gotta own it.
No, the thing is, like, I've never experienced such a psychic connection with someone like outside of those Scorpio relationships. Like, I would just know where he would be. I knew when he was going to get in an accident one day. I knew like he got hit by a car on his bike.
What was going on with Mars?
I don't remember. But it was just a while. I would like walk out of class and like be like, I'm going to go to the 5th floor. Like, I know he's up there. And just like go and walk into the hallways, like weird shit. So yeah, Scorpios love. If you know, you know.
Yeah. If you know, and we might not see you again.
Yeah, yeah. It's literally like, are you trying to come to the dark side?
Yeah.
And I probably would for someone for my twin, basically.
I don't blame you at all, especially knowing your chart, knowing a lot of Scorpios in and out. But I think that that's also a big misconception that people get is that they can't date their own sign.
Oh, yeah. No, you definitely can.
And I don't think that that's the same for each sign.
True. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've seen it work. It's funny because I'm writing about every single sign combination right now for this book. And it is interesting sometimes, like Aries. I lived with a girl who was dating this other girl that's Aries. Oh my God, they were like a fun disaster. Like the most fun disaster. Still really good friends, but they would just like cry, fight, scream, fuck, and repeat constantly.
Well, because Aries as the baby of the zodiac, and I say that not like adult babies, but I say that in the way that Aries tends to walk around with this fresh-eyed experience. Like they could go through something 100 times and the next time they go through it, it's still new to them in some way. So it's like, why not fight? Why not fuck? Why not kiss? Why not break some glass?
So, like impulsive and explosive and fun. But yeah, you can. What would you say would be your favorite like sign combo, like 2 signs together of the same sign? Because I have mine.
I honestly think I'm going to go 2 Libras.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Where are you going?
I was going to say 2 Virgos.
I'm done saying it. When my eyes get wide like that, you know I was just about to say it.
I know a few Virgo couples, including my aunt and uncle, and I just feel like it works. One of my good friends I used to date, actually, Johnny, his twin He's a twin sister. They're both, I was telling you this, both
Yes.
Virgo stelliums. I didn't tell you this part. His partner is also born the same day. Different years. She's a little older than him, but also a Virgo. Like twin, basically. Isn't that funny?
You want to know what? If everybody's going to cast us out and try to make us the bad guy in their stories, we're just going to find each other.
Yeah.
It's just going to be Virgos dating Virgos.
I love
Everybody
that.
has this idea. You're like the one exception of people that I've ever heard talk positively about Virgos.
I'm always a Virgo defender. Mercurial defender until I die.
I can't wait for the merch, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
Virgo apologist, I need to wear it. I'm going to have like Monday through Sunday underwear, but it's just Virgo apologist. Or like love your Virgo properly.
Yeah, kiss the Virgo today.
Yeah. But
yeah.
I love that. I'm all for that.
I think we should talk a little bit about, one more thing I'll say about like dating and using astrology and dating is you're the astrologer in this position, you have to understand the power dynamic, because there is a power dynamic involved. If you have this knowledge, and essentially looking at someone's chart is almost like looking at them naked in some ways.
It is. Their soul is naked.
Exactly. And I've made this mistake before, not in dating, but just like asking people questions about things that seem really interesting in the chart, but like might be really triggering, might just not be the right time. So I just caution people to be careful and ethical. Not really ethical to like send people's charts to other people for dissection and
with no consent. Like, you really do. If you start to look at somebody's birth chart like photos of their naked body, but it's their naked spirit, don't be that person with the revenge astro porn. Please don't do it.
Exactly. Yeah, just be careful and considerate about how you're using astrology. Yeah. And
how do you feel about people trying to calculate somebody's birth chart without their knowledge? Like, I have had a lot of friends say, oh, they told me their birthday, so then I went on Facebook and I found the year, and then, I was calculating all of the different rising signs they could have had that day, and this one makes the most sense. And I'm like, hey.
The rising sign thing goes crazy far. I can't act like I haven't done that.
No, absolutely not. I have a Scorpio stellium. Of course I've done that.
Literally. Even on dating apps sometimes when like I don't want to ask them their birthday, but I'm curious about like, where was Saturn or Jupiter or whatever. Like just certain things I might be curious about. I might just kind of do mental calculations like, oh, they're 37, so they were born this year. And just like things like that. But I don't think I've gone that far with anyone that's actually been like a prospect, like maybe like a celeb or like someone like an influencer where you're like
celebrities, people in the public eye, politicians, like you're trying to get a better understanding of the influence that they're using.
Right. Or maybe events that are happening to them.
Exactly. But utilizing, like you were saying, the power over somebody, or like, their moon sign, their Venus sign, their Black Moon Lilith, and their Chiron, and now you're like going on the date and being like, so talk to me more about your mom.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that Moon Pluto conjunction. Tell me more about your mom.
But not even like telling them how they know to ask that question. Yeah. That's where I'm like, wow,
manipulative, creepy. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. But you can book couples readings.
Yeah, not with me, but it was with Meghan. I tried doing that. I didn't have a great experience. I only did it a couple of times, but I think I'm just like a one-on-one girly. Like, talk to me about everything. I've had some I'm just like randomly thinking about some wild client like stories I've had, which obviously won't share. But anyway, I think one more thing we wanted to talk about, we kind of started with it, we kind of want to bring it back, is
Circle it all the way back.
Just like the rising sign
to 7th house.
To the 7th house, In the chart, there's 12 houses, and the first house, like we talked about, that's the rising sign, the ascendant, the self.
Yes.
Directly opposite that would be the western horizon, the descendant, what is descending back into the underworld or the below world. after it crosses that point.
And it starts your seventh house.
Yes.
It's the marker of the beginning of your seventh house of relationships.
Right.
And
so whatever sign is your rising sign, the opposite sign of that is going to be your seventh house sign.
yeah.
And it's essentially the marker, the place in the chart that has to do with relationships, partnerships, like you said, like committed partnerships, one-on-one connections, which can be like your best friend and also, your lover and also your business partner. All these people show up in your seventh house.
Absolutely. Mortgages that you sign, business partners, I think you already mentioned that, but even businesses that you build, it's like...
Even like enemies can show up here. Like if someone's suing you, that's going to be your seventh house too.
You want to know what? It makes so much sense to me that my seventh house is so filled to the brim now. It makes so much sense to me when you put it that way.
Yeah. It's like friends and foes, it's like who's standing opposite you,
Yeah.
right? Like who is opposing you.
Absolutely. And it's mirrors. Like I think we have to understand too, like the things that trigger us the most are only able to trigger us because there's something already inside of our coffee cup when that thing is bumping into us. Like there's such medicine and this potential for alchemizing inside of hatred. Like the opposite of love is not hatred, it's indifference.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that when we think about grudge holding, any long-term relational building that's happening, whether it's inherently good or bad.
Exactly. Yes. In your own chart, when you look at your first house sign and then your seventh house sign, kind of think about that axis. Think about, for me, it's Pisces and Virgo, which is why I love Virgos. For Meghan, it's Taurus and Scorpio. So there's going to be a lot of those type of people that come into your life. A lot of, I would say, those archetypes playing out in relationship often.
Absolutely. It's like a spectrum between you and that person. So you think about it when you're in the ocean and you're saying like, oh yeah, I'm riding your same wave. You're not in the same plane on the x-axis, but you are on the y-axis,
Yes, I love that.
Going back to calculus, probably butchering that, but like it's like the ability to connect more easily because there's that open channel and portal even through the opposition.
Right. Yes. So, yes. It's like, even though you're opposite one another, you can see each other clearly. And that's a big part of it too.
So do we want to go through all of the opposite signs? Like,
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's do that. So
love it. As we've gone in on, the rising sign is that initial way that you're being perceived. It dictates the houses in your chart. So with the ascendant or your rising dictating your first house, your descendant is going to mark the beginning of your second, or the descendant is going to be marking the beginning of your seventh house. So opposite signs, rising sign and your seventh house sign.
Yeah, they're always going to be opposite signs. If you're an Aries rising, that's going to be your opposite sign, or your seventh house sign is going to be Libra. And then vice versa. If you're a Libra rising, it'll be Aries.
Yep. But if you're a Taurus rising like me, your seventh house is ruled by Scorpio. Scorpio rising, your seventh house would be ruled by Taurus.
It just clicked for me that we're in each other's seventh houses.
Yes.
Our suns light up each other's seventh houses, which is really sweet.
I said this too. I was like, this is not just an off the hip project. I'm in this for the long haul with you.
Yes, we're attached at the hip at this point. So yeah. And I would say just to kind of zero in on like the Aries, Taurus, Libra, Scorpio. Yeah. These are the signs ruled by Venus and Mars. So we have a lot of the stereotypical Venus-Mars type of dynamics, or like lover fighter, or
the 80s book, men are from Venus, women are from Mars.
Yeah, something like
opposite, but
and yeah, a lot of those like, chasing, receipt. I don't know, just like
anxious,
that
avoidant attachment style.
Yeah, too.
Cat and mouse.
So with the next sign, I guess, would be Gemini risings. Their seventh house would be Sagittarius. And so really going for someone that has that. I feel like Gemini and Sagittarius risings need another person to just like talk to.
Absolutely.
Constantly.
To keep them growing or in some form of movement, even
Yeah.
if it's just internal, if it's spiritual growth, if it's mental stimulation, but there's movement involved with both signs.
And yeah, like mental exploration, essentially. They really need that sort of mental stimulation.
Or traveling.
Yeah,
actual
traveling.
movement, working out together, joining a running club. It takes so many forms. I dated a double Gemini with an Aries rising.
Oh, fun.
And just constantly on the move.
Yeah. Next would be Cancer. Cancer risings, 7th house or Capricorn, and vice versa. Capricorns would be Cancer. And yeah,
Saturn and the moon.
Yeah, I just love this combo. I know a couple I used to work with in advertising. One's a Cancer rising. He's a Capricorn. I think he has like a Cancer moon or something. And they like worked on a project together or something and just fell in love. And
it makes sense. And in advertising too, like the most creative of business endeavors.
Yes. And she was like a business manager, badass. And he's like, top exec guy. I don't know what their titles actually were, but
was it work and home meshed as well, like living out workaholism, any of that?
I think so. But yeah, I love that combo because you have both Cancer and Capricorn are signs that have to do with creating containers and creating secure spaces. Yes. Cancers is more about spaces to nurture and grow things. Capricorn is more about places to build things for the long term. Yeah. But both wanting growth and just different approaches. Yeah. One's a little bit harder, one's a little bit softer, I guess.
It depends on whether or not you like it rough.
Don't get me started.
We're still at work.
Yeah. I'm not going to go there. But because Cancer and Capricorn, just that axis is very sexy. Yes. But yeah, Cancer can be.
So Cancer, Capricorn, next is Leo.
Yes.
And Aquarius. And Leo with the sun. Aquarius double ruled by Uranus and Saturn, but
no.
You're like, no, I don't go.
I can't do the modern rulerships personally.
Listen, I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday about how I fully dive into Scorpio being ruled by Mars, and I don't agree with the Plutonian aspects, especially for myself. Like, people are like, you're so fiery. You're always on the go. You're constantly moving and you work more than people in a corporate environment. And I'm like, because I have a lot if Martian influence in my chart, but no planets in fire. So it's like, I'll give you the floor for Aquarius.
If I like,
okay.
Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. It's Saturn in its air element as opposed to its earth element in Capricorn. And we don't have to, that's a whole nother episode. We can talk about that.
We need to get into that.
We will eventually. But what I will say is the Leo Aquarius axis. Oh my God, do they love each other? Those Leos and Aquarius, they like cannot get enough of each other.
I fully agree with you. It's so funny to me though, because the Leo that I was the most wrapped up in eventually ended up with a Scorpio. And I was like, that tracks.
That's what I wanted to say about like modalities is people think that like, oh, Aquarius and Scorpio or Leo and Scorpio won't match.
They're both fixed.
Fixed signs are obsessed with each other. It doesn't matter what sign it is. And we're saying Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius are the 4 fixed signs. And I think it's because they feel, I say we feel, because you're fixie too with all your angular fixed stuff.
I know.
We feel so safe with each other.
Absolutely.
It's like because loyalty and safety and comfort means so much to fixed signs.
And there's not that power dynamic like there is with 2 cardinals, because I'll be honest, like I don't know a lot of cardinal sign couples, like a lot of cardinal dominant couples, because I feel like they like taking the wheel.
Yeah.
They like driving the ship, making the decisions, exploring and leading. Yeah. But fixed signs, I'll sit on the couch with you all day long.
There's unless you guys are coming to us, I don't think we're gonna be out tonight. Sorry. That's like I wrote so much about that with like fixed sign couples and like, they prefer to host.
Yes. 100%. But I will say I don't like when I'm hosting and I can't politely say, get out of my house.
Yeah. I've learned the way, I think.
Yeah. It's probably better to do that inner locus of control work because I'm like, maybe I'll just only have friends that know when my social battery is gone. But
no, you just have to be like, all right, guys, time to go.
We're done.
You
don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
You gotta get the hell out of here. Yeah.
Okay, but with the Leo and Aquarius axis, when you see a Leo rising and then you see that Aquarius 7th house, and also vice versa, the Aquarius rising and the Leo 7th house, how are you describing that axis to people?
That's a good question. I think of Leo and Aquarius, I think of centralized and decentralized. I think of like, the warmth and centeredness of Leo or of the sun versus like the many and multitude and sort of marginality of Aquarius. I feel like Aquarius has a lot to do with kind of being on the outside looking in.
Or Trojan horsing in a lot of ways. I like to describe Aquarius as the quiet cult leader. Just kind of, it doesn't need to shout.
Yeah.
Look at me or put me in a power of position, but you're eventually going to notice that Aquarius is running the show the longer in line you are with their energy.
I could see that. Yeah, and I think I think Aquarius really loves that Leo warmth. And I mean, who doesn't? Everyone wants to be basked in Leo sunshine. But I think, I don't know. I think they check each other in a way that really like turns the other on. You
Absolutely.
know?
The good push and pull.
Yeah.
It's like the motion of the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, it goes in and out of
Speaking of our last combo, Virgo and Pisces. I mean, it's my axis. I'm a Pisces rising. Virgo is my 7th house. And I love Virgos. I can't get enough of Virgos. I think, what is it? I think there's something, at least what I can say, what I love about Virgos is there's just like this, the humble nature to Virgo, I think resonates a lot with Pisces, but not in a way that feels suffocating.
Absolutely. I describe too that they're like two funnels, the small end of a funnel meeting in the middle, but then they go off in their own direction. Like Virgo is not often described as the intuitive one. Pisces always gets its flowers for being extremely spiritual and sensitive and emotional and poetic and creative, like all the things that I feel like I hide away in my closet and take out when nobody else is around. But Pisces gets this kind of visionary of the intuitive and the creative channels from the spirit realm.
Yeah.
But I always say that Virgo in the mundane tasks and rituals has these epiphanic moments, these epiphanies that come to them from brooming and mopping and sweeping the floors and organizing the closets. And that's why we like things in order, because in the order we find access to the uncontrolled, to the spiritual, to the things that are beyond the human realm in the very humanistic experiences of life.
I love that. Yeah, I think Virgo gets a lot from Pisces too, just in the being able to tap more into the creative and the sensitive and the body and get a little bit out of the head.
Yes, that mercurial energy could not only drive the mercurial mad, but the people that listen to the onslaughts of mental, it's a hamster wheel.
I mean, it's hard. I think about Pisces Virgo as like the beach.
Yeah.
Pisces being the water and Virgo being that mutable earth, that sand that you can just like play with and build stuff with. But yeah, there's just something that flows so lovely with those two.
Totally. I couldn't agree more.
I feel like we should just circle back to the first two real quick because we didn't talk too much about those signs, and I feel like they're going to feel left out. And we don't want to hear from Aries.
You can't leave Aries out.
I don't want an angry Aries,
Aries
hitting me up.
And Libra, self and others.
Yeah, I think that's such a hard axis, but when it works really well. Yeah. And it's difficult. I have this axis in my chart, my Aries moon opposite my Venus in Libra, and the trying to go between being selfish, which everyone needs to be selfish at times.
Self-prioritizing.
Yes. And then also learning when to compromise, when to, partner, when to let go of all your autonomy and your independence, which is so hard for Aries, at least from this Aries moon. And I remember like my last relationship years ago, it was so hard for me to accept it that I was like in a couple and like this was like a person that was like a part of my identity now.
Yes. And taking into consideration, like it's not all about you're not doing this for me or this is holding me back from growing. You're also giving to the give and take.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, but it definitely can work. Yeah. So that Libra, Aries, they need each other. Those energies at least need each other.
Absolutely.
And then Taurus, Scorpio.
I could go on all day about Taurus, Scorpio. This is my major axis. This is where my South Node, my rising are over in Taurus, and then essentially every other planet in my chart. No, I'm just kidding. But so much of my chart is focused over in Scorpio. And Taurus and Scorpio to me, it's like, and not laziness, the way that people describe Taurus. It's just understanding the sensual nature and aspect of life. And
contentment almost.
Yes. And then how that plays with passion and a sense of heightenedness. Like I described Scorpio as the fire that brings you to a sense of enlightenment or almost like refining things. They're so good at this meticulous calculation of just being totally driven by passion.
Yeah.
But they both have like sexuality and passion versus like sensuality and pleasure.
Yeah. It's interesting. The Taurus Scorpio axis is, I think, the densest axis. And if you know any Taurus Scorpio couples, they don't break up. Like they very rarely.
Even if they should,
they don't, exactly, because they get so enmeshed and content and comfortable in they're fixed. They get fixed into their little love bubble
and like fighting to fuck.
Like
incredible makeup sex culture with those two. Just having their own forms of needing to be right, whether it's stubbornness or righteousness.
I love how this turned into just like talking about the two signs in a relationship, but whatever. It's helpful either way, I think.
We can leave them out.
I think we're going to wrap up this first episode with this. This has been really fun.
It's been incredible. I hope you guys had as much fun watching this and diving in with us as we did diving in together. This is just the beginning.
Exactly. Lots more to come. We have a really fun whole like calendar already planned out Virgo style for the next couple of months. So we have a lot more coming for you and we're super excited.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to When Stars Align. You can catch us every Tuesday for new weekly episodes.
Be sure to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave us a review to help more people find us.
If you have questions about your love life that you're interested in us answering on a future episode, be sure to submit them in the link in the show notes.
This podcast was created for Stars Align dating app, produced by Meghan and Kirah, and edited by Chad the Maverick.